else. And a lot of times people dismiss me when I say it that I'm deaf. Like you're just hearing me. You look like you're just hearing me for just fine.
Right.
When I'm really not. I have to work really hard at it.
Right.
You know.
I think that's important too, because, you know, especially as young people, we always need an accountability person, somebody that will see us for who we are and don't necessarily think it's something wrong with us. You know what I mean? And so I think it was
Right.
important for me. I remember when we would be riding, when you first started to teach me how to do my job, you know, and how to do prevention.
Yeah.
And I would be riding with you and you would always turn so you can hear me. And I used to think, what is wrong with this lady? Why is she turning? And then when you shared that
Yeah.
with me, I was able to understand, okay, she can't hear me, number one, and I need to talk louder, you know, to make
Yeah.
sure you do hear me. And I noticed that, like, if we would have went to lunch or something, I made sure I sat on the side that you could hear me. And I did it in such a way because I wanted you to feel included, especially when we went to lunch with other people.
Yeah.
It wasn't my job to tell other people you couldn't hear them. It was my job, I felt like, to set on the side that you could hear me telling you what they said just in case you didn't hear them.
Yeah.
And so I think it's very important for young people to know that even if they had a disability or even whatever that disability is, they still can be included in the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
Um,
how important it is for you to feel included.
um, when people go to the effort of making me feel included, I actually feel like I matter. You know, I spent my whole life keeping it pretty much a secret because I didn't want to seem different
Uh-huh.
from everybody else. And so I missed out on a lot of things in life because I didn't want to get outside that box and people think I'm different. And it would have been a big help and probably gotten me to certain places in my life quicker had I not been afraid to share that with people. And you are one of the few people that really has in the workplace really tried to make me feel included and understand that I am deaf. You know, otherwise I'm the one that's sitting over in the corner, not saying a whole lot, you know, just being.
Yeah. I remember we went to a training in Jackson, to that coalition training we attended,
Mhm.
and we were sitting in the back and you couldn't hear them. And as your friend, you know, not just your coworker, but as your
Right.
friend, I wanted you to be able to hear. Like, I thought it was very important that some places who don't really understand that you have people in there with a disability, whether people can't see as well as others, whether people can't hear as well as others, that they know that it's important to include them. And so I remember that on our break, I was like, you know, we have people in this room, and I didn't even have to identify it was you. We have people in this room who can't really hear as well as others, and that it would benefit if we used a microphone, you know. And I
Yeah.
think just letting people know that people do want to be included, you know. And that leads me to the point of, people don't really care about how much you know, they care about how much you care.
Yeah.
And so my question for you is, when you realize people really do care for you, how do that make you feel in your everyday life?
Oh my gosh. It really makes me feel like I do matter. You know, and that's part of the reason when I do teach children that I now let them know what's going on with me, why I seem different. You know, maybe I didn't hear you correctly. And, if there's a lot of noise in the room, I'm not going to be able to hear anyone. It's just one big noise. The closer you are to me, the more likely you are for me to be able to hear you. Um, but people don't understand that. And so oftentimes, especially even with kids, because I do seem like I'm normal, and I do most of the time, I guess, respond correctly. They don't think it's that big of a deal when it really is. I mean, even people in my own family oftentimes don't take the time to understand how difficult it is for me to hear and understand what they're saying. So when people do it, it really does make me feel like I matter.
Wow,
What I
that's
have
good.
to say and what I can bring to the table matters to you.
Right. Because here's the deal. We all matter, right? And we all want to
Absolutely.
feel like we belong and that we are included, even in the conversation, included in family gatherings, included at school when we're doing things. And sometimes we don't know. Sometimes we don't really understand. And so it's very important, would you say, to stop, to ask questions. If you don't understand something, maybe ask questions, maybe confide in somebody who you trust, who you believe that won't take your disability and make fun of you. Because I think for me, when you shared your truth with me, I felt some kind of way. I felt like I mattered in your life. I felt like you trusted me with something that you maybe, in the past haven't trust many people with.
Yeah.
And so for
Yeah.
me, I remember we laughed about it and you said, I said, I think I love you just a little bit more. And it was because you trusted me with something that was near and dear to you. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of times, a lot of young people have things that are going on in their lives who they haven't yet trusted somebody with, a secret or an ailment that they have or a disability that they have. They haven't yet found somebody that they can trust with those secrets. And
Right.
I think this is important what we're doing today, because as adults we have things that we haven't yet trusted people with, and knowing now
Absolutely.
that we have been able to share those things, it makes us feel different. It makes us feel like we matter. When you shared it to me, I felt like I mattered in your life, and I felt like, okay, I'm gonna show up for her. You know what I mean? Like, if
Yeah.
we're in a room and I know this about you, I'm gonna show up in a way that I'm not gonna make you feel any different than anybody else in the room. So when people talk, it's like we got this thing now with each other. And if we're sitting next to
Yeah.
each other, I'm just gonna automatically tell you what they said. We keep it moving.
Yeah.
I don't even try to tell
You
the people
you
to talk
automatically
about.
kind of know that I'm not getting it.
Yeah, yeah,
I can look at you and I'm not getting it, so you'll
yeah,
tell me.
yes,
Yeah.
with no problem. Like, okay, they said
Exactly.
so.
That's like
If
an
we,
unspoken thing with you and I now.
yes,
Yeah.
and I think that's important for young people to have in this day and time.
Yeah.
Somebody who see them and see
Yep.
no difference, but see them and able to help guide them along. And so I think that's very important. I tell you all the time that I think the world of you. You've been doing this job, prevention, for 17, 18 years, and you've been
Yeah.
on the front line working with our young people, making sure that they get the knowledge and the education about drugs and alcohol prevention, and able to get that word out. They have to be able to hear what you're saying. They have to
Right.
be able to not only hear it but understand what it is that you're saying. And so I personally want to say thank you for the work that you've done. And I see you no different than the rest of us. All of us have things that we're battling in our lives. All of us have to show up for each other. And so
Yeah.
I'm thankful for the work that you've done and
Well,
how you
thank
have
you.
persevered, even in spite of having a disability.
And like I was saying earlier, that's the reason I wanted to. I started sharing my story with the kids, is because you know I talk a lot about building self-esteem, and when I was a little girl, I struggled. I've always had health issues, and when I was in the first grade, I missed so much school that they should have failed me because
Mm,
I was sick. And so they never got the opportunity to figure out that I was deaf then because I was sick all the time. And but they passed me to the second grade, and then when I was in the second grade, I hadn't gotten enough of the fundamental stuff that I got should have had in first grade. Then I was struggling in second grade, and nobody knew I was deaf at this point.
wow.
And finally, the teachers, decided they needed to have my hearing tested, and that's when they just found out that I was deaf, because I was struggling so hard. So I wound up failing the second grade because of my not being able to hear.
Mm,
And I'd like to share that with the kids too, because so many of them, some of them are not in very good, you know, homes. Their parents are absentee or are struggling with addiction or whatever it may be. And so they've got obstacles in their way too. And I want them to know my struggle through my life with my deafness. And that even though, I felt like a stupid little girl who
mm,
who wasn't very smart because I was deaf and then I failed the second grade. And then on top of that, my dad was in the military and we moved every year. So I had to make new friends, go to a new school, just found out I was deaf, and repeat the second grade
wow.
all at once. And so then when we get to the end of my story, I tell them, you know, I had to decide who I wanted to be.
Oh,
Was
that's
I
good.
going to still be that deaf little girl who can't,
Mm-hmm.
or am I going to do something different? And so that's when I decided, and I felt like I had to prove to myself that I wasn't stupid. But I feel like that's the reason I went to college for 12 years and got those 3 degrees, is because I needed to prove to me that I wasn't stupid.
Oh, that's good there now, Rita. That is real good. So wow, you said a lot. You said a lot in that one statement. So, how important is it? Because a disability, even at a young age like that, can be a risk factor, right?
Yeah.
For kids to get involved in things that they shouldn't get involved in just because they're trying to compensate for the lack of, or whatever that lack of is. And so what would you say to that, with it being a risk factor? How can we um, give a protective factor for that particular risk factor for young people with disability?
For me, the biggest thing was my relationship with God, and my faith that He was going to help me persevere.
Okay.
And but on top of that, um, one of the things that we teach a lot of is building self-esteem. You've got to be willing to recognize you're gonna have to work, you're gonna have to do some serious work
Yeah.
to overcome these obstacles. And you gotta have goals. And when we have goals, then we can stay focused on those. And every time we accomplish one, it builds our self-esteem and it helps us get to the next level, in our lives. And keeping those goals and whatever your faith system is in place, and being constantly reminding yourself of those things, is how you're going to overcome any of these obstacles that you're going to face. Don't you think?
I do. So what I hear you saying is, number one, you have to have a good spiritual system,
Yes,
something that you have to believe in, something that is greater than yourself, right? And
absolutely.
so that higher power, as we would say, helps you, guides you through things that you can't help yourself with. Number two, I heard you say, you have to set goals for yourself and believe that you can accomplish those goals and be consistent with it, right?
Yes.
And know that it's gonna take you working these goals.
Hard.
Right. And you can't sit around and have a pity party for yourself. You know,
Right.
woe is me. Oh, I'm that little girl I can't hear, and this, that, and the other. I flunked the second grade, and all these woe is me. But you believed in something that was greater than yourself. You tapped into spirituality, and you began to move forward in things in that regard. And you set goals, and you live by them. And even, Rita, to this day, you know, I have an opportunity to work side by side with you, you know, in this thing called prevention, and we are here to tackling the epidemic. You are still setting goals for yourself. You're still
Absolutely.
persevering. You're still moving forward, you know, and that's amazing to me, because number one, the things that you said that you had done just to get to this point, I can see those things in your life today, that you are still a woman of faith. You are still, you know, setting goals. You are still working those goals, and you are doing it diligently. You are consistent at those things. And so that's amazing. That's something, some steps that young people can take. You know, believe in something that's greater than you. You got a disability, you know, believing something that can help you through all those emotions, because you know that is a risk factor for our young people. Depression
Yes.
sit in, anxiety sit in, feeling less than sit in, you know, always comparing yourself to somebody else begins to happen. And as long as you continue those things, you're going to end up doing something like drugs and alcohol to compensate for those emotions. But if you believe in something that's greater than yourself, that says, you know, I can't do it myself, because if I did, I stay in a pity party, right? And so I'm
Right.
gonna believe in something that can help me move forward into thinking I can instead of I can't.
And you know, I have been in mental health for over 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, the biggest thing that I have always tried to help people with is building our self-esteem. That's the foundation to overcoming anything or accomplishing anything in our lives.
Right.
Is we've got to create a healthy self-image, you know, so that we can do all these other things as healthy as possible as well.
Right. Now, Ms. Rita, before we close, again, I want to say thank you for taking out this time to talk about something that I know has been near and dear to your heart. You know, kids moving and doing things in spite of whatever your disability is. So I want to first thank you for that. And number two, if it was anything that you can leave a young person with who is struggling, no matter if you got a disability or you just struggling, period, what would
Which we
that one,
all do.
yeah, yes, we do. What would be one thing that you would want to leave them with before we close?
Find your
Find your
faith.
faith.
You we can't do anything, in my opinion. I don't know who your higher power is, but find your faith. And also, you know, one of the things I tell adults, children, whatever, whenever I'm guest speaking, is, and you know, through some of these um, recordings that we're going to do, you're probably going to hear me say this a lot, but it is something I feel like if it takes saying it every time we do it, so be it.
Right.
But we've got to try to keep um, motivated at all times and inspired. And so I recommend highly um, downloading positive affirmation quotes, faith based apps, and inspiration on your phone, on your computer, all the time. Because research shows that even if you're just reading something positive 3 times a day for 1 minute, you're increasing your positivity and increasing your confidence and your well-being. And so I think that that's something that you have to do your entire life. It's not a one and done. You got
Right.
to fight with that demon all the time. And
Hmm.
so make it a daily habit to work on that consistently.
Yes. Hey, I thank you for that word. That was powerful. It's not one and done, meaning it's something that you have to do daily to
Yeah.
stay the course and stay focused. And I thank you for the time that you've shared with us. And in closing, I want to close like I do all the time with my young people. And that is, if nobody have told you today that they love you, I do. If nobody have said that you matter, guess what? You matter. If nobody have said that you can accomplish anything in life that you put your mind to, and like Miss Rita said, work hard for, I'm here to tell you today that you can. If nobody have told you, if you don't show up tomorrow, that they will miss you, guess what? Miss Rita and I, we will miss you. And so in closing,
Absolutely.
I love you. Miss Rita loves you. And trust me, you will be seeing us again the next time. Listen, today is a wonderful day for you all to marinate and to think about what it is in life that you want to accomplish and go after it. You all have an amazing, amazing day.